This big edition of the West Tigers podcast brought to you by our Bathurst road trip. There are still some seats available for our big coach trip to Bathurst to see the West Tigers take on the Penrith Panthers. Don't miss the opportunity. Book your tickets now. Visit westtigerspodcast.com.au.
It's the West Tigers podcast, episode number 314, joined by Steve Stretton and Gary Watson. Gary, I just changed my intro for the first time ever. Did you notice or not?
No, I don't pay that much attention to you, mate, so...
Go. I used to always say hello and welcome, but I thought, bugger it, I'm just going to say episode 314, let's get going.
What I did notice is you came in very, very pumped up, but yeah, blew me back in my seat a little bit.
So your strategy was to just get straight into it, and here we are a minute later, and we still haven't said anything.
Yeah, I should have just done the intro, shouldn't I?
Have you been introduced yet, Steve? What are you talking about?
No,
well, it's good of Steve to join us because, I mean, last week his dinner plans got in the way and he had a blow up with the fact that we weren't very organised. So it's good of you to, organise dinner before the podcast, Steve, so you could come on tonight.
Yeah, well, you're 15 minutes late, but I'm still here, so consider yourself lucky.
Boys, there's plenty to discuss tonight. Despite, talking, we were 2 nights ago, we were on talking about a great win over Parramatta. I will get Steve's thoughts on that in a minute because he wasn't on Monday night. But the strategic plan was released to the public this afternoon. We're going to do a buy, sell, hold, one of my old favourite games. And, of course, we're going to preview the Dolphins game. But, Steve, I believe you've been in Sydney for a few days. You just got back home. You were at the game Sunday, I believe. What was your takeaway or one word, if you had one word?
One word would be toughness, I reckon. Mate, I said that I thought the Cronulla game was an 80-minute performance and was one of the best performances I've ever seen from the club. What they did on Easter Monday was just amazing. Like, they had no right to walk away with the 2 points. Like a 10-2 penalty count, which was due to some poor discipline but trying to get off the line a little bit too quick a lot of the time. They had to repel 6 or 7 sets of defence in the first half, which sucked the juice out of them. They lost a player for 10 minutes. There's no way the West Tigers that we've seen and watched for the last, say, 3-4 years at least would have got anywhere near that game. So to be still in it at the end and then win it was amazing. And we've said, we've said, gee, we need a bit of luck. Why do we not seem to get much luck? Well, maybe that Gutho kick's the start of a bit of luck for us. So, it was great to be there, that's for sure.
It was funny when he was lining that up, Steve. You guys are probably old enough to remember, but I know, Steve, knowing your form in the quiz, you're not going to remember this, but I was out there at Parramatta Stadium, Gary, in 2000 when Clinton Schifofsky had a kick to win the game or draw the game for Parramatta. And I was also out there in 2010 when Luke Burt had a kick to take the game to Golden Point when we had dominated them, and they both missed. So when he lined that up, for some reason, there was part of me thinking, here we go again, Gary, and there was part of me thinking, I think he's going to miss this. And it was off the boot. It was wide straight away, thank God.
So you had one of those Eddie feelings again that it was just going to go our way.
Well, I don't always get it right, but I just had a gut feeling. I didn't want to tell anyone in the room because I was horrified because I thought, here we go, we're going to get done again. But thank God he missed. And boys, Steve, you were quite dogmatic about this squad is capable. And I sort of laughed, and I didn't laugh, but I shot that down.
No, you laughed.
You laughed.
I laughed, and I also sledged you about it and countless things. But, you're looking like a half genius at the moment. I won't say a full genius because we've only played 3 games, but I think your point is becoming valid because they are capable. If they play like that every week, you'd think they would win at least half their games.
That's the thing, right? That's what I keep saying. It's the pass mark is only 50%. But the thing is, every team has capable first grade footballers. Every team can go on a run. Every team. What's got to happen for us is somehow all those capable individuals have to be brought together and they have to play like a team, which we haven't done for a long time, and they have to become resilient and play like that week after week after week. Now, I reckon we're seeing in Benji Marshall a bloke that has the ability to bring individuals together. I think that's obvious. And it's not just Benji, it's the coaching team, but Benji's, he's at the front of it. Whether we are going to be able to sustain this level of intensity for the season, well, we're not going to know that until the season rolls out. But we are capable of making the 8, and we've shown that.
So a question on that angle a little bit for both of you. We've had many false dawns in the past where even on the pod we're saying things are starting to turn around, only for it to fall in a heap quite soon after that. Are you guys convinced that we've turned that corner?
I'm more convinced. I won't say the word convinced, right? But I will say I'm a lot more confident than I ever have been. I've never seen, in a decade, I haven't seen our team play like they have over the last 2 weeks. There's something different about this current squad. They are the defense, the defensive structure and defensive resolve is just incredible at the moment. And everyone who knows anything about rugby league says you build your club on defence, and you're going in the right direction when your defence is holding strong. Our defence, even in the good times, has never been, our high point. What we're seeing at the moment is something very, very different. Now, of course, I'm biased. Of course I am. And I'm hopeful, and I want it more than anything. But if I try to be objective and logical, there is something different that we haven't seen in a long time, I would say.
Mm. I'm sure, Gary, we got on, probably not in the last 2 years because we started 0-4 or whatever, but there were times when me and Joel in 2019 and 2020 probably said, this is a different side. But the one thing that I look at is like coaching at the highest level these days, and don't worry just about rugby league, but all sports. I think it's becoming more and more about just creating that environment. And that's what gives me the strength, the positivity. I don't think it's as much about X's and O's because everyone has a certain level of talent. But I just look at little things like the body language when they're in the sheds, when they're celebrating tries. Like they all seem to be really switched on, and it means something to them. And it is early days, but I just you rarely see that. I haven't sensed that even in certain wins in the past. I've seen flashes in the pan like last year when we beat the Cowboys, but just in terms of their connection this year, I think it's promising from Benji. I don't know how many wins it's going to relate to, but I'm hoping it's going to relate to those sort of performances every week, win or lose, Steve.
Eddie, you'd have heard this when you were doing your weekly evaluations of the pod, as I know you do. A few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, I think I just said what I was watching the game on TV, and they cut down to the sheds before the game and then again at halftime, and the focus on Benji Marshall was just unbelievable. And you compare that, I said this, right? You compare that to what we've seen in the past. It's chalk and cheese, mate. So you're 100% correct.
No, I mean, you did say that, and I think, to be honest, that's something I'd probably sneezed off. But then looking at it, and it's easy to look at after a win, but this is, they were down in that game at halftime. Well, they weren't down, but they were mentally, they'd been put through the ringer. I mean, it was 65% possession. It probably should have been 18-6, Gary.
The big thing for me is, as you guys know, I love football. I look forward to every game we play. All off-season, I'm waiting for the first game. But I'm really excited for the game this weekend, and more excited than I've been for a game in a long time. Because what this team has showed over the last 2 weeks, the grit and the determination and the skill from a young guy like Lockie Galvin, even though he's out for the next 2 weeks, what he's added to this team makes me excited to watch this team play. Because most of our football over the last 2 to 3 years has been so dour, and there was some real excitement. That try that Buller scored on the weekend was a fabulous, exciting try from a piece of skill from an 18-year-old. These are all things to be really excited about. And I'm really excited for this weekend because I do truly believe if we show up and put in another strong performance against the Dolphin side that's going fairly well at the moment, another strong performance, another committed performance, another performance where you've got Stefano absolutely powering into the defensive line and the rest of the forwards following him, then for me, that really does show it's starting to turn the corner. We've had flashes where for 2 weeks we've played really good football in the past couple of years. We've never been able to stretch it to 3. So this weekend's really important for me, and I'm really excited because I am starting to believe that this side is one that will at least fight and compete to win matches.
So another way of saying that, Gary, is that what you were saying a few weeks ago was in fact wrong?
I would never say that I'm wrong, Steve, but I am getting a little bit...
New evidence is presented, Gary.
New evidence has presented, but it's 2 weeks of new evidence.
Can we do a
Give me a third week. Give me a third week, Steve, and I may be on the top 8 bandwagon with you. You'll be still driving, but I may be sitting in the passenger seat.
We're on the now train, mate.
I was going to say, just don't call it the bloody bus, Steve. You call it the train, so thank you. The strategic document, Steve. When I got this, I think Joel sent around the link. I actually sent it around to a couple of mates and said, "Can you read this for me? Because I've got a podcast and I'm not interested in reading things like this because they're full of corporate mumbo jumbo." But you know what? I did decide to read it, and it was pretty light. I've got to be honest, Steve. I don't know if it was just this is what they put out to the public and it's far more detailed, oriented in private, or whether this is actually a smarter way of going about it. Because I do remember years ago, the Bulldogs put out this strategic plan and it said, we want to win 2 comps in the next 10 years and we want to be in the top 4 in 2 years. And as soon as you don't meet those objectives, the fans start shouting from the rooftops. So my question is, were you surprised how light it looked to me? Is that a fair summation?
Yeah, look, Eddie, I think your mates have nailed it, mate. I think that it is a light. No, sorry, I'm taking the. I think you're right, Eddie. I think you're right. It is. My first reading of it was that it was very light, and I thought a little bit maybe spinish, right? A bit of spin. But then I read it again, and then I read it again, and the more I read it, the more I actually liked it. I like the fact that it's just a 2-year plan because we are such a changing organisation. We need to be incredibly agile. So I think short, sharp goals to achieve are good, and there is some serious change needed. And I think they've identified those areas and going to hit them hard straight away.
So I'm just going to interrupt for a second.
Yeah, mate.
I think a key part of that 2-year part is you've got to remember our board's not fully in place yet. So the group that set your strategic direction as a club, it's really your board and your CEO working with them to set that direction of the club. And without that full board in place, I wouldn't be comfortable with them having a 3 to 5 year plan at this point in time. Sorry, Steve.
No, you're right. No worries at all. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's one of the reasons we can't set long term. We've got to be very agile at the moment. But yeah, so Eddie, I do feel as you do, but the more I get into it, the more I actually like it.
What have I got? I've written down some notes here, boys, because I knew I would fluff over this. But they wrote down a few key indicators, Gary. It was a vision to become a top 4 club in the NRL and NRLW, and be one of the leading sporting organisations in Sydney. They did say this plan was also going to be reviewed in July of 2024, so that's quite short term. That's only a few months away, and to extend the strategy to 2026. Is that in line with what you were talking about, Gary?
I would think so. I would expect by that time, and Richo has spoken about in the next 2 to 3 months, the rest of that board being in place. So having a look at that strategic document with the entire board and reviewing it and adjusting as needed, I think is completely appropriate.
Some of the goals that they tried to, I think, minimize. Is that a word? Minimize, or is it minimize? It's minimize.
Minimize it.
It's like my when I call that player Myanmar Marmalade. Minimalize. That's a new one.
And
Yeah, Joel can add to the list. some of the goals they did set were, I would say, not conservative, Steve, but deliberately probably attainable. There's no point saying we want to have 30,000 members by the end of 2025. They want to have 13K. The end of this year was 10K. You think that's attainable?
Yeah, I do. I've written down here that I think the numbers that they're given, where they have actually quantified something in the document, the numbers that they've given are seemingly quite achievable, even on the point of being conservative, which is not a bad thing because, when you're engaged in massive change, one thing you want to have is immediate success. You want to have people within your organisation, and in this case, because it's very public, those who are outside looking in, you want them to see that you're actually achieving something. So to make your numbers, your quantifiable achievables, a little bit conservative is not such a bad thing. And the fact they're going to review it formally in 12 months' time or so allows them to pivot and reset if they've achieved that quicker than they thought. So, yeah.
Probably smart, Gary, to almost work off a worst case scenario. I'm not suggesting they did this, but I would suggest they would want to reach that target if we still got a wooden spoon this year. Whereas if we get a top 4 or top 8 position, you'd think membership would be through the roof and past 13K in 18 months. But you in line with Steve's thoughts there that it's a touch pragmatic?
Yeah, it probably is a little bit. But you have a look at the numbers. We're currently sitting below 8,000. So we're adding 5,000 on top of 8,000. It's actually quite a big jump in an 18-month period. So while it is, when you look at other clubs' numbers, it does seem like it's a little bit conservative. But that's quite a big increase when you break it down that way. So that's what you have to remember as well. Yeah, you do have to look at the starting base, and our starting base for a lot of these areas is quite low. Even the stuff around the commercial, I think compared to a lot of NRL clubs, our commercial revenue coming into the club probably isn't matching most of the NRL.
I think it was listed, Steve, around the 6 million mark, and the target was get towards 8 million. So that could be bad news for Leichhardt Oval. Yeah,
well, there's some definite there's some different pointers in the strategic plan. One is the negotiating with federal and state governments and setting up ongoing relationships with them around stadium. That's that could be Leichhardt Oval, but I don't know. I think we're heading towards larger stadiums. If we're going to grow and deliver, using these strategic pillars, we need to be increasing our corporates, and if we're going to increase corporates, we need to go to the stadiums. And my view. I love Leichhardt Oval to death. I'd love us to be there, but unless it can help us achieve what we want to achieve out of this strategic plan, it's not going to do the job.
One of the disappointing things in the plan for me, and Steve raised it with me first, so I don't want to steal all his thunder on it, was in the grow pillar, the fan experience. The fact that that's based solely around stadia policy, there's nothing about actually building the experience at the game, apart from going to a new stadium. I think there needs to be more there. There needs to be more engagement with your fan base to build that kind of game day experience. And Steve probably can add to it as well, but I think that's a little bit light on.
Well, I know Shane Richardson has used the word family a lot, and it's become a little bit political speak. Those politicians get out there and there's a word for the day, and they all repeat it. Well, the word we're hearing coming out of West Tigers when we're talking about fans and memberships is family, which is awesome. It's a great priority to have, to turn your fans and members into advocates for the club so they feel like they're part of a family. But what's in here that is specific and not just a generic sentence that makes you feel that they've got any strategies in place to build a family of fans?
Yeah,
that's missing.
I was looking at that, Steve, and there are those repetitive words, and the key one I think is grow. He continues, assuming it's Shane Richardson who signed off on all this, they continue to use the words grow in everything. But they did sign, I don't know what his actual title is, but this Sean Menenkamp from Central Coast Mariners, and he was their community manager or all those sorts of things. And he was actually highly, highly regarded at that club. I don't know if it was Declan or someone said when they found out he was leaving, the fans actually gave him a minute's applause during the game. So he has put some resources there, Gary.
Yeah, his role is going to be community and affiliates, I think is what it was. I think he'll be involved in a lot of the community programs, but also the kind of fan engagement programs and engaging with different fan groups and that sort of stuff. The community side of it really interests me. He's a great appointment, by the way, so I don't want to brush over it too quickly. But his role in engaging, especially that Southwest, the Southwest pretty much had its own section in the plan and all about engaging with schools. Schools was mentioned a lot about engagement. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the pod about the Panthers on the Prowl program and the Souths Cares program. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the angle we're going down. About one of the mission statements is to enrich the lives of our community. Now, by doing that, it can't be just tokenistic. I don't overly believe in it's just going into schools and running rugby league clinics. Let's get into schools and let's help make a difference. That's what the Panthers on the Prowl program does. That's what the South Cares program does. It's about proper engagement to enhance your community. And that's how we connect with the Southwest. That's how we get a real connection with that area instead of what I think in the past has been fairly tokenistic.
I think what would be really good, and I don't know whether the club would entertain this or not, this is a very macro document that's been put out to everyone. And of course, the club's not going to go into all the final details and make that public. But I think maybe someone communicating the next steps and going from macro to micro a little bit would be a good thing, because at the way it sits at the moment, the way I read it, it is a little bit confusing. If you look at that grow our community reach, the first thing they say is that they talk about appointing the person they've appointed. Now, I'm not sure why that sits as a dot point under a strategic pillar in a strategic plan. All right. That is an action step that sits in your set of actions outside of your macro strategic plan. And then they go down further and they talk about commitment to be in 50 schools and be in front of 3,000 students by 2026, talking to what Gary spoke of. Now, that's the beginnings of a SMART goal, which sits above your action steps after you've written your strategic plan. So, again, I'm not sure why that's there. So it is a little bit confusing. They seem to have really honed in on that Southwest thing, which is great. That's really good. But what else is there? It'd be great to see, well, what are you thinking? What are your next steps that just micro it in a little bit and start to give us an idea of the specific strategies that you're going to be engaging in to achieve that, grow pillar and deliver pillar within the community.
You've just spoken about my point a little bit that I was about to make, is that this document doesn't sit alone. So this document that's been released to the public is not the complete strategic direction of the club. It's not the complete management plan of the club. It's not the complete plan moving forward. Sitting along with this, as Steve just said, you'll have a set of achievable goals, SMART goals underneath it that the club targets that they're looking to meet. Now, there is a little bit of a mention of targets, but I would expect there to be a document with very specific, measurable targets sitting there. Now, along with that is you have, as Steve mentioned, your action plan, which are your strategies and your processes that you're going to go through to achieve those targets. That's what sits along with this document. And without it, to get that really in-depth knowledge of what it is we're exactly doing is really difficult. But this isn't uncommon. I've done these sort of documents with schools a number of times in the past. And quite often, you get a 3-page document that's released to everyone. Then as I said, you have your goals and you have your strategic targets and you have an action plan to reach that. That isn't a public document. So I'm not too surprised by that. But what it leads to is people like us sitting here and guessing how they may be going to go about that. So Steve's exactly right. A little bit of direction about what's next and how we're going to achieve these things. I think not necessarily in a document form, but maybe in something like a Behind the Raw interview that is apparently going to be released tomorrow afternoon.
And the reason I say that is because Shane Richardson has talked about honesty and transparency. And
it's in the document as well.
Yeah. So the more open and transparent, I'm not saying the word honest because they are being honest, but the more transparent they can be and the more detail they feel they can give us, the more comfortable people are going to feel. But I don't want to sound negative because it's what they've got. It's short and it's sharp and it's to the point and it's good.
Other things they mentioned, boys, was going from 9 to 10,000 registered juniors in the next year and doubling community school visits from, I think it's around about 100, 120 now to up to 300. Steve, I'll ask you. I thought Declan made a good point on Monday, which is rare. So I actually, I spooked up and I better write this down.
We better record it.
Yeah, so this is a question without notice, but do you think, and this is, you're not going to know this, but it's just an opinion or a gut feeling. Do you think Gary mentioned there Southwest, and it's a clear sort of objective to make it a focus point, but can you be anything more than tokenistic long term if you are not playing games there, or if you're only playing 2 games there? I think Declan raised the fact that it's easy for the Penrith community because they see their heroes play every second week at the same stadium, and same for Parramatta in a way. So do you think that I was 6 months ago when I heard about this strategic plan, I thought it might lay out a long-term vision to commit to Campbelltown in terms of games, but there's certainly nothing there. I suppose it's hard at this point, the way the stadiums are, but your feelings on that?
Yeah, I don't think you can call this strategic plan long-term vision. It really is. Let's get moving and let's set some very important priorities for the next 18 months to 2 years. That's what it is. Now, there's a section on its own, as I think Gary said, that sits sort of like outside of the pillars, which is, roaring ahead in the Southwest, right? Roaring ahead. And there's a whole section of it. And they've already established an office. They've got the address in this, interesting points, right? They got the address of the office in the strategic plan. You wouldn't normally do that, but they've obviously done it for a reason. They want people to know that they're heading to the Southwest and they're fair income about it. Now, I'll say that what we've done in the past, and years ago, I was part of this in the fact that I was teaching in schools out at Narellan and West Tigers used to visit, right? And what they did was just horrendously poor, right? And going to MacArthur Square Shopping Centre and sitting your football team at a table and signing autographs for a couple of hours, that's tokenistic, to use your word, Eddie, right? That's just nothing stuff, right? But if they can replicate, and I don't know anything about these programs, all I know is what Gary has mentioned, but if they can replicate that Penrith on the prowl, Panthers on the prowl, and the Rabbitohs program that Shane Richardson has spoken about into the southwest of Sydney and have a true presence there, and to your point, Eddie, play football games there and show that the West Tigers are part of that community, then they'll win. They'll win that battle for the Southwest, which we need to win if we're going to be the development club we want to be.
Yeah, getting those programs right is crucial. And as I've said many times, and I've said it tonight, it needs to be proper engagement in schools. Panthers on the Prowl run things like school centres at Penrith Stadium. So they have a teacher employed there. They get at-risk kids into the school and they work with them at the stadium. They engage with the players. They run sporting programs in school that are not just about rugby league. They run sporting programs that expose kids to playing sport. I've taken a busload of year 5 and 6 kids along the Panther Stadium where they hold an expo where they invite all sports from the region around to Panther Stadium, and they run an expo day where kids can come and try all the different sports. So it's not just about promoting yourself. It's about promoting your community and wanting positive outcomes for your community.
Doing something, Gary, not just promoting, right? Actually
Yep.
enacting change. That's what these programs do from the sound of it.
100%. Penrith Panthers have some of their junior players who go into schools as teachers' aides. So not just someone coming in to visit and giving you a football. These are appropriate choices that they're making of people, but they're putting them into classrooms to help teachers in classrooms. These aren't just programs to promote Penrith Panthers. They do promote Penrith Panthers, but they're programs to assist their community. And I think that's what we've done really poorly. We've had a mission statement for a long time that has been about enhancing the lives of our local community. I don't think we've done that in the past. What we've done is just walk into school, say hello, and then walk back out again.
It's time for buy, sell, and hold, guys, because
Can I make one more point?
you can. I was just going to say, you make the point, then I'll make the point.
Just one interesting thing I do want to pull out of that strategic document is the stuff around brand awareness. I found it very interesting that they're going to do an audit of the West Tigers brand identity. That West Tigers branding is going to be the center of everything they do. It raises the question about whether the reserve grade side stays as the Magpies. And I think that's a very interesting thing that's in this document that I'll be looking to see over the next couple of weeks and possibly in that podcast tomorrow.
I did notice on that. I don't know if they've always done this, Gary, but I did notice looking at the NRL ladder, we were the only team to have both names there, West Tigers. I just thought that, I don't know if it's been the case all the time, but
it's always been the case. All the other sides are pretty much, they were named by mascots, but they may have changed around to the club.
Everyone else just had their mascot, but we were.
Yeah, it's been, all the other clubs have been mascots for a long time. I don't think they could get away with dropping the West from Tigers. I just don't think it would work. But it'll be interesting to see what the West Tigers do regarding that branding and that identity of the club.
Well, buy, sell, and hold, guys. It's my favourite topic, and I felt a little bit out of my depth talking about the strategic plan, which is not often the case. Speaking to you two boys, but I did. I know Steve was very detailed. Some of those words you used, Steve, you're making me motivated there. Not that I had a clue what you were talking about half the time.
Did you need a dictionary?
Not quite, but he's just the passion. I could see the passion coming out and the know-how. So, buy, sell, and hold. Question 1 for you, Gary. Robbie Farah will still be an assistant coach beyond this season.
I'm going to sell that. I think he's got aspirations to move into another area anyway. I see him kind of aim to move into that general manager sort of role. So if he's those
days, surely Gary, those days are. I'm not being disrespectful to Robbie. That's that's his dream and whatnot. But that would have maybe happened under Lee and Pascoe. But Shane Richardson probably is not going to put Robbie into a general manager straight away.
I'm not saying he'll go into that role next year, but if he wants to go into that role, I think he needs more experience than just being an assistant coach. I think he probably needs to do some work in pathways and all different sort of areas around the football club, rather than just being an assistant coach. And I don't know. I don't know the excitement levels and how down he used to get after a loss as a player. I don't know how well that transitions to a coach, but you never know.
Well, you could see, Steve, I don't know. I just got the feeling watching him in the box, it was like when he was a player. He was writing every play. So I thought he could never, ever be a head coach because he couldn't deal with that stress. But if they start winning, I'm sure it's something you want to be a part of with Benji.
Well, Ricky Stewart has made a career of it, and I don't think Ricky Stewart would be much different to Robbie Farah. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. As Gary was selling that, I was just thinking exactly what you said, Eddie, that he looked incredibly engaged in what's happening and just loving what he and everyone around him is doing. So I reckon he might get a taste for it, actually.
Steve, Aidan Caesar and Bud Sullivan will both not be at the club in the start of 2025. Are you buying that or selling it? They both will not.
Yeah, I'm going to buy that. I think Aidan Caesar, the plan is for 12 months, and I think he'll do a great job, but I think that will be it. And I have said from day dot that I thought we overreacted to losing Brooks and overreact to our negative situation in the halves last year, and we've bought too many. I know you can argue back at me that we didn't have Luai at the beginning. I can understand that, but I think Sullivan will want to play first grade, and he'll want to be in the mix for first grade. He's not going to be in the mix for first grade next year.
Which one's more likely to be here, Steve?
Out of those two,
yeah,
that's that's an interesting question, because I've been thinking the same thing. I reckon Caesar is more likely to be. I don't think he will be, but he's got more chance than Sullivan.
Yeah, I mean, even Gary, I just, even if obviously you would say Luai and Galvin's going to be the long-term play, but there's certainly a spot for Aiden Caesar as your backup halfback throughout the year.
Yeah, the possibility, if he's willing to go around again and play the most of the season.
Some club will pick him up if he plays too well, though.
Yeah, what he showed over the weekend, I thought he was fantastic on the weekend. I thought he was fantastic the week before, and he was quite good in that first trial. So there's an argument made that he could still be our best half.
All right, well,
next season.
I'm going to say it. And it's not going to...
You're going to say we don't need Luai, aren't you?
No, I'm not going to say we don't need Luai, but I'm going to say that I watched him on the weekend, right? And despite all the journalistic rhetoric that happens every time, right? They say the same thing about the same players over and over. That guy did not lead and organise that Penrith attack. He was opportunistic. He was good. Right, he played what was in front of him, and sometimes it looked fantastic, and sometimes it looked poor. Right, which happens with blokes who play what they see in front of them. He did not lead that team around in a structured way, and I'm going to say it again. I've said it before. When I've watched him play that type of football, he's not the guy we need. Look at how well Galvin is playing, having Caesar next to him. It is a great combination. Luai is not going to provide that for him, and I'm concerned that if he's going to come in and play 7 to get us around the park, he's not going to be able to do it effectively.
My opinion on that, I think Penrith shoeboxed him. I think Penrith have him playing a role they want him to play. I think he's going out there and playing that role. Even with Nathan Cleary out, the second best halfback in their club's their lock. Like, there's no doubt about that. A lot of what Penrith does revolves around the 13. And Luai's still playing second string to that, even when Cleary's not there. So for me, and I don't know whether he has it in him because no one's seen it yet, but the plan for him coming to the Tigers, and at this point in time, we spent all off-season bagging out Benji Marshall. Benji Marshall really wanted him here. He really wants him here to play that 7 role. If this side continues to go the direction it is, we have to trust his opinion on that. But he'll be coming here to play a completely different role to what he's playing at Penrith. He'll be the guy that when the chips are down and he's calling for the ball, the plan will be he gets the ball. Now, Galvin's probably thrown a spinner in the works with that because at the moment, I think he gets the ball when he wants it. So
I love that. I love that about him.
So do I. And you have a look at the try he laid on for Buller when he did that. But he is playing a typical 5'8" role. He isn't playing. He's playing both sides of the ruck at 6. Caesar's playing that 7 role. I think Luai will be given the opportunity to be that chief 7 playmaker, and I think time will tell whether he has that in him. But I expect him to be playing a very different style of football when he comes here compared to what he's playing in what I believe is a shoebox that Penrith have put him in because they want him to do that one role and that's all they're looking for. I actually think that's a big reason why he was looking to move.
I think that's fair. I don't think we'll know, Steve, until he comes here because I was at that game, the Penrith game on Thursday night, and I was interested to watch Jerome, but it did surprise me a bit that they just plugged in the other halfback, who I can't remember his name, the boy from Canberra, Schneider, I think it was, and Jerome was tasked with playing exactly the same role that he played with Nathan Cleary. So I don't think it was a case that he didn't take control. It was the fact that Ivan Cleary wanted to do exactly the same thing and the halfback to run the team. Gary?
That's what Penrith does, though. You have a look when Yo's out, Eisenhuth comes in and plays that similar sort of role, or attempts to play that similar role. Doesn't play it to the same level, but they have the systems in place of that club that everyone has their defined role in that team. And when one guy's out, the next guy comes in and plays that same role because that's what he's been playing in the lower grades.
Well,
that's what they do as a club.
To both your points, the points of both of you, Cleary has come out and said that he's not sure Luai has the ability to organise the team, so maybe he doesn't give him that opportunity to show it, right? That could be something. I hope you're right, Gary. I really do.
I hope I'm right too. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I'm. I like my 6 and 7 this year. There, I wish Caesar was, 31.
The only real evidence we have of him playing that role is from the World Cup. And he did play a 7 role in that World Cup. He did get them to, they played in the final yet? So, he did play that role during the World Cup, and he did play it with success. So, whether he can translate that into doing it week to week in the NRL, that's what we're going to find out.
Okay, we've got about 4 of these to go. Steve.
That was a long buy and sell question.
David Klemmer will be at the club at the end of his contract in 2026. Buy, sell, or hold?
No, I'm going to sell that. I think he's playing some good football. He got tired at the end of last year, back end of the year. He's come back fresh. He's taken a little bit of time to get going, but he's playing very destructive football. And with Steph, he's leading our pack for sure, but I don't know that he'll be able to be that dominant for that long.
I probably agree with that one. Gary, we won't get bogged down on this one because this could go on for half an hour, but just your thoughts or your opinion. Leichhardt Oval will host more than 2 games in 2025.
I don't think so.
Okay. I deliberately put it at 2, Steve, because that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard on the grapevine, that there might be 1 or 2 games, a bit like Canterbury do at Belmore. Where do you sit on that one?
Look, I don't want that. I don't want us doing. Okay, we pick a stadium. Let's say we pick Parramatta Stadium. What's it called now? CommBank, right? Let's say we pick CommBank for argument's sake, right? Then to me, that's it. That's our home ground. Let's play there. I love Leichhardt. I absolutely love it. But if we're not going there, let's not go there. Maybe play a trial there. But once the season starts, let's turn a home ground into a fortress and play there. Play every home game there. I don't like the idea of making everyone feel good.
Yeah, I don't want to see us going back to playing at 3 stadiums. If we are not going to use the traditional grounds, and there's a lot of work to be done to make both of them fit for NRL standard, then let's go to a stadium. But if we're going to a stadium, let's go to a stadium. Maybe take 1 game back to each of them a year. Once you're taking 2 back, that's 4 games out of your 10 or so home games that we tend to have.
No, but that's it, Gary. No, what you just said, that's what we've got to get away from.
100%.
We've got to resist the urge to say, maybe we'll take a game. No, we don't take any NRL games there. Trial, yes. That's it. We've got to own a home ground, in my humble opinion.
Sorry,
Steve, take this one the right way, Steve, please. Luke Brooks is back where he belongs, outside the top 8 in 11th spot. Buy or sell?
How am I supposed to take that? Luke Brooks will be in the top 8 by the end of the season when it matters. That team will make the top 8 without doubt, and I hope they do, because I hope he experiences some success.
Are they taking our spot in the top 8, Steve?
No, they can finish below us. I'm not that nice.
All right, boys. Last one. I'm going to direct it to you again, Steve. it's time for Gary to admit he was wrong about Alex Seyfarth. Buy or sell?
Absolutely. I've been saying to Gary for months and months and months what a fantastic player Alex Seyfarth is. He's the first picked on my team sheet every week. So, yeah, that's two things Gary's been wrong about tonight.
See, this is why I like this buy, sell, and hold game, guys. I can just make up the questions and annoy you blokes.
So do I get a response to that? I just don't get a response.
No, move on.
Moving on to the game against the Dolphins, boys. It is just around the corner. 5-day turnaround. You said they're going all right, I think, Gary. They're not going all right. They're top of the table, the Dolphins. It's a bit deceptive because they've only played 3 games like us, won 2 and lost 1. But they've got those 2 points for a bye, and their 2 wins have been shellackings. My question is the 5-day turnaround. How big a problem is that?
It's massive. Teams don't play well coming off 5 days. I'm really concerned about that part of it. The last thing we need is a side that turns up flat and lacking energy, because the key part of our start of the season has been how our intensity and our commitment. And what I'm worried about is off a 5-day turnaround, that's going to be a little bit lacking. And that brings back too many memories of what we've seen from this team in the past couple of years. It brings back those memories of having an up game and then having a down game. So it is something I'm really concerned about.
Steve, Benji versus Wayne. The press has been trying to build this up all week, but Benji's been very, very pragmatic about it. He said there's no emotion, there's no anything about coming up against his younger brother and Wayne Bennett's just another team.
Yeah, I said a few weeks ago that when Shane Richardson started talking, that he just hasn't said a wrong word, hasn't said a wrong sentence. Everything that's come out of his mouth has been spot on. Well, I'll just repeat that and put Benji Marshall's name in there. He is just, you're right, there's no emotion. He's positive. He says the right things. He doesn't cop any crap in those press conferences. He says it like it is. And I just love the way he refused to get into that. Didn't they also ask him about Jeremy Marshall King as well?
Yeah. They kept going the same line. Yeah. And then in the end, he just said, no, I'm not interested. We're just going up there to win.
And he said that, which I think is going to become a famous line, is we're on the now train. We're not looking back. And no, he's doing great. He's got a long way to go, obviously. But so far, he's handling it really well.
Big change, Gary. Obviously, forced change. Lachlan Gowan suspended for 2 weeks. Bud Sullivan. No surprise. And I guess I'm not inside the 4 walls and I don't see their training, but I'd probably have to go the same way, given everyone else got an opportunity for redemption after Canberra. He didn't really. So he comes in to number 6. Your level of optimism about him turning it around?
It's not real high. I'm not convinced about him yet. What I'd like to see is that attacking type of football that he displayed when we played them last year. Haven't seen that at all from him since he came over to the club. I think he's been playing within himself quite a bit. So I'd like him to take the shackles off a little bit and at least have a bit more of a crack. I'm not saying he's not having a crack, but be a little bit more adventurous in his play. I would have loved to have seen Fainu get a start in that 6 jersey. I don't think he's played enough football, though. The fact that he's been coming off early in the reserve grade games for the past 2 weeks, I don't think you can put him straight into that starting spot. But I am really glad to see him on the bench. I think he can come on. If he's on limited minute restriction still, he can come on and play a part for us, and we get to have a little bit of a look at him this weekend. So for me, that's a really interesting part of this side for this weekend.
Just on that point, when he does come on, I know Appy has actually said that the way he's playing is not sustainable, but I just hope we don't get Fainu coming on to 6 while Sullivan goes into 9 to give Appy a break. I'd like to see Fainu getting the ball at 6 while Appy is still driving us forward up the middle. I'd really like to see that. And my other point was going to be with Sullivan at 6. The thing that concerns me most is if Sullivan plays the game that Gary wants him to play, historically it's going to be based on individual effort. him seeing something and going himself. Whereas what I'm loving about Galvin is the combinations that he's putting together with his teammates very quickly, and we're going to miss that big time this week, I think. Buller is just thriving off having Galvin at pivot, so I hope Sullivan's able to, work hard at training with Buller and others and get those combinations happening.
I just want to see a shift in mentality from him, Gary. It might sound a bit harsh, but like when I watch Aidan Caesar, we've all talked about his game management stuff. Man, his defence has been good. And Lachlan Galvin's missed one tackle for an 18-year-old. And yes, he sort of catches and grabs and whatever, but Jayden Sullivan, he was shocking in that first game, switching off on the blind side, and he got run over by someone for the first try. That's the one thing. That's the first thing he needs to get right this week is his defensive mentality.
100%. The defense has improved a lot since he actually came out of that team. And that defense down that right edge that he was defending on against Canberra was suspect all game. It was suspect in the St. George trial as well. He was in that group that were waiting on the line for guys like Moses to come through. So there are areas he does need to improve. Caesar's defense on the weekend I thought was outstanding. What's really interesting, and you don't overly get to see it when watching on TV, but watching at the ground, Appy for the past couple of years has really driven our line speed. Caesar was just as good on the weekend at driving that line speed and getting us up off the line in defence. So I think he's really got to be commended for that because it's not just Appy driving that now. Caesar is as well.
Latu Fainu, Steve, a lot of experts are now sort of saying, 12 months ago they knew Lockie Dalvin was going to be great. I hadn't heard his name until about December. I think Declan brought it up, but experts had heard about Latu Fainu 12 months ago, and he was probably one, if we're being realistic at the start of the year, you'd think he was the one more likely to pop. So it's very exciting. He's obviously underdone, and he's had a couple of hamstring injuries, which is a bit of a worry for me for a young guy, but man, imagine the position we'd be in if Lockie Galvin comes back in a couple of weeks and Latu Fainu is tearing it up.
Yeah, exactly. To have, competition for positions, key positions in the spine, what an amazing situation that would be for us. And there's no reason that won't be the case. I don't know that it'll be this week. I don't know Latu Fainu. I've never really watched him play apart from a couple of little snippets here and there. So I can't make a comment. But I wouldn't thinking we should expect too much from him this week. First gig in first grade with the West Tigers and coming back from injury. I think it'll be dip your toe in. We probably won't see the best from him for a couple of weeks, but hopefully we see enough from him that he can keep his spot on the bench or in that 17. Because what he could bring to the team could give us a lot of options.
Alex Twal also back on the bench. Gary, keys to winning and your prediction? How do we win and why?
Look, for me, we have to turn around and do the same things we've done well the last 2 weeks. We have to be getting forward. The start that our forwards, our props especially, got for us last weekend, the work of Stefano, his intensity and his power bringing the ball, especially out of our own end last weekend, was really impressive. We need that to continue. We need those defensive structures to hold. Our defense the last couple of weeks, even when we've been in trouble, even when we've been short on one side of the field, they found a way to get the job done, and that needs to continue this weekend. If we can get down the field, if we can play off the back of Appy, it's going to be interesting to see how we adapt to the loss of creativity that Galvin actually provides. You have a look at our try assists. He's been involved in a lot of our tries, and overcoming that loss is really crucial. That's why I want Sullivan to be playing a little bit more adventurous, because I'm a little bit worried without Galvin in the side, we'll lack points. I mentioned this on the pod the other night. We are starting to run those shapes and block plays that other clubs are running. We need to be straightening the ball. We need to be creating space for our outside men to allow us to strip numbers, because we can't rely on Galvin bumping a guy off and drawing 2 defenders down the field and offloading the way he did the Buller the other day. We don't have that this week. So I think more traditional stripping of numbers is going to be really important. So I want to see Buller straightening that attack really well. Those are the things I think will help. And our kicking game, drive them into the corners and let's get into the game. Let's have some intensity. And hopefully we come away with 2 points.
I think we're going to win, Steve. I'm not bullish like I was against Canberra because that was a mistake because we lost by 20. But I would be very confident if we had a 7-day turnaround and Lockie Galvin was playing. So I'm a little bit worried with that short turnaround and Sullivan, but I'm going to back him. I'm going to say he's going to step up to the plate this week and we're going to win 22-18. Your prediction, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to back us to win. I am worried about the short turnaround because the game was so physical and we had to do so much defensive work.
And hot.
That's right. But the positive that can come out of that is we did have 9 days, was it, before that? So we had a long rest between Cronulla and Parramatta, so they were extremely fresh for that game. So that will help it a little bit. But I'm going to tip we're going to win. But we have to, if I can give my 5 cents worth of how we're going to win, I'm going to talk on the other side of the football and say it's going to be all about line speed. They've got Hammer at the back. They've got Farnsworth. They've got Osako. They've got Averillo. They've got pace to burn. We've got to get up on them. Got to get up on them, right? Because if we do play as if we're fatigued and we've got slow line speed, we'll let them get around us. And they'll go around us. So that's what's the key to me is line speed.
Another thing in regards to that short turnaround, we also lose a day pretty much travelling to Brisbane. So it's a short turnaround with a trip to Brisbane as well. So that doesn't help that situation.
Harry, the key is, Saturday morning, they've got to make sure Benji
goes and plays golf.
Even though it's in the Sunshine Coast, Warren Smith said on the commentary that he's got connections up there. So you've got to stick to what works. And at the moment, doing no training and playing golf is working beautifully. So, Steve?
Can I just make mention, like you talk about that trip to Brisbane? Last week, I sat at home and I was thinking, this team needs support. We really need to get behind this team. So I made the 900-kilometre trek down to Parramatta, and I was sitting in the crowd. I was one of those 29,000. So I'm looking forward to seeing yourself, Eddie, and Gary, and maybe Declan and Joel, maybe Kelly. Like I've got a B&B underneath my house. I got the room, and so I'll be there. I'll be there in a seat on Saturday night.
It's your home ground, Steve. Really, technically, isn't it? Suncorp Stadium.
Well, probably Gold Coast would be closer, but yeah. Who's counting?
So, Steve, are you saying you're more committed than the rest of us? Is that?
He's implying that.
Pretty much.
But I mean, Steve, the good thing, I have never been to a game at Suncorp, but plenty of Tigers fans in Brisbane. I know because my mum grew up in Queensland and she was a Tigers fan, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a big crowd there and a fair amount of Tigers fans there. So make sure you're sitting amongst them and making some noise, especially if you get a pea-headed referee like we had on Sunday or Monday.
Jared Sutton, my favourite.
Oh, it's not, is it?
No, it is.
Oh, we got no hope then. Dolphins will win 30-0.
There goes the free-flowing game.
Yeah. All right, quiz time, boys. Question 1. The multiple choice. No, it's not a multiple choice. In which season was the last time our West Tigers won 3 games in a row? I'll ask you first, Gary.
2019.
Steve?
2018.
Steve's right. 2018. The streak was broken when we lost to Newcastle in Tamworth. Sean Kenny-Dowell scored in the last minute. This is a little bit of a trick question, but it is multiple choice. How many West Tigers players have played for the Dolphins? Is it 0, 1, 2, or 3? Steve?
1.
Gary?
More.
2.
Well, apparently it's 3 because I think Yachty's going back into the history of the Ipswich Dolphins here because he's named Jeremy Marshall-King, JJ Felice, whoever that is. He obviously played for the West Tigers, so I can't remember that, but he must have. And Robert Jennings. He was a great player for the West Tigers, Gary. I would have run quicker down the wing.
Mate, I'm trying to forget him.
Question 3. Which Oh no, I'm going to leave that one out because I'm not sure about that. Sorry, Yachty. I'll
You'll be in trouble, Eddie.
text you about that after. Question 4. Including Monday's field goal against the Parramatta Eels, how many one-pointers has Aidan Sullivan kicked in the NRL?
Well, there's no such person as Aidan Sullivan.
Aidan
So I'm going to say 0, and I'll be correct.
You were correct. And Aidan Caesar, how many one-pointers has he kicked in the NRL?
I'll say 3.
I'll say 4.
11. That's impressive.
I win. Well done, Gary.
Impressive.
Why don't you ever just play like you do this all the time? Like you just play this manipulative garbage, Gary. Like have a real dig, mate. Have a real dig.
That's not very nice, Steve. You hurt my feelings.
I'll go forward. Poor old Declan. You had him in tears last time.
Yeah, that's probably me, Steve. I think that was me.
Oh,
Who am I? I was born in Christchurch in 1987. I debuted with the Warriors, played between 2011 and 2013. I jetted off to the Super League for 2 seasons. I returned to the NRL with Manly in 2016. 2018, I signed with the Tigers and I played 9 games. I think he started in the first game of the year against the Roosters. Infamously replaced with a forward for my spine position. So he was a hooker. Once a club legend returned home, a hooker, I never made another appearance for the club.
Not Steve's favourite player.
Who's Steve's favourite player?
Peter Godinat.
That is correct, Steve. Well done.
You got the assist there, Steve.
Got the alley-oop there from Gary, which is rare.
I didn't even hear you.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well, it's been a marathon edition of the midweek podcast, but
Hang on, Eddie. I think I won that, didn't I?
you did. I don't keep score, and I've got no interest in the score. But
3 bonus points for the who am I?
But let's hope.
No, Steve, you answered 3 questions right. That takes your total to 4.
Let's hope, Gary, the club doesn't release strategic plans every week. Otherwise, the podcast will be 2 hours every week. But where are you watching the game on Saturday? I might go up to West Ashfield and get amongst it Saturday night. I'm sure they'll be up and about, the locals there at the Leafs Club.
I actually don't have any plans. I'll probably just end up watching it at home, I think, this week.
Joel will probably go to ANZ to watch it, Steve. Just sit in the crowd by himself and turn his phone on. He loves that ground so much.
You all should be coming up to Suncorp. Come up to God's country.
All right. Thank you, boys. See you soon.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, guys.